Since the Luka Doncic trade, the NBA just won't stop trying to trade all the stars around the league, apparently. So we're going to talk about this latest report that suggests that Lamelo Ball could potentially be somebody that's on the move this offseason in the summer. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure you subscribe because 80% of viewers are not subscribed, and we'd love to have you guys join us on our road to 20,000, which is approaching pretty quickly. Um, so the Lamelo Ball piece is really interesting because Charlotte actually has Lamelo Ball locked up at what probably will wind up being a pretty reasonable deal, despite the sticker shock of saying, oh, 46 million, no way that's reasonable. But if he's healthy by any chance, which has been his biggest knock at this point, the way salaries are trending, the way these guys are getting over 60 million for a all-star caliber point guard, young as well, I would personally not feel too mad about that, but you've got him locked up for the next handful of years here. So Charlotte's not in a situation where like the Mavs were, where Luka is supermax extension eligible. And I personally would have gave Luka that, but there's been a lot of reporting to come out of there. But the main reason that they didn't really want to keep with Luka and keep that going was they didn't want to give him that supermax extension. They had a lot of questions and concerns about him, and that's why other guys have been kind of put out there too. The new CBA is just really forcing a lot of these teams' hands when it comes to the way that they're building their teams. But Charlotte's in an interesting spot because LaMelo is still locked up. But the reporting is that following the Luka Doncic trade, NBA executives around the league have expanded their horizon on which potential stars could be next to change teams. The availability of Hornets guard LaMelo Ball is one of the stars several executives who spoke with HoopsHype will be monitoring on the trade market this summer. So that is really where it is that now these teams are like, okay, wait a minute. If teams are trading a Luka Doncic, well, who's to say they're not trading a LaMelo Ball, a John Morant, who, again, like I said, I don't know if some of these guys will get traded or whatever, but these are names that are out there. Kevin Durant seems like it's all a foregone conclusion he's going to get traded, but we've seen a lot of names start to get thrown out there, and it's probably looking like this is going to be a very trade-heavy offseason as these teams are put in positions where the only way to really improve is to trade their players off. Now, again, if you're Charlotte, you're not really in that situation because contractually you don't have to deal with that, and then you're not going to take a huge leap to be a contender anyway, so you're not really in the same situation. Charlotte's weird because they've still got like all of their assets, basically all their draft picks. Their books are relatively clean here. Like I think they have to pay some guys like Mark Williams here soon. Like they don't really have anything really besides LaMelo really tied up long term. Brandon Miller, of course, they've got him as well, locked up too, and they'll definitely extend him when they need to. Miles Bridges, okay, but like they're in a weird spot because they're still a few pieces away, in my opinion, from really being a serious team. LaMelo and Brandon probably needs to take another leap a little bit as well. And again, with LaMelo, the health, like 22 games last year, 37 out of 59 so far this year, 36 the year prior. He's just not been healthy. Aside from his rookie year, which was 51 games, I think that season was a little bit shorter because that was the year post COVID. I think that one was a little bit shorter, right? Anyway, so not very healthy for his career. So that's the biggest knock on him. But maybe that's his leap, is just being available. But obviously, the production when he's out there is awesome. 5 rebounds, 6 rebounds average, 7 assists, 1.5 steals, 21 points. He's a great player, right? So that's more or less what it is with him. I think his availability is probably the big leap that he's going to take, but Brandon obviously can get much better as well. But yeah, Charlotte's not in that same situation. So I don't know if they have to trade LaMelo Ball, but teams around the NBA are keeping an eye on Charlotte because of that. And I wanted to take a look at the greater article overall. What's next with LaMelo Ball, Mark Williams, and Miles Bridges with the Hornets? Following the trade, executives are keeping an eye on LaMelo Ball. Ball was one of the several notable all-star snubs despite leading East guards in fan voting for the starter ballot and was 4th in scoring when the all-star reserves were announced. Due to games missed, Ball won't be eligible for an all-NBA selection either. I don't know if he would personally make it either, just because the team is just not very good. And they're like currently I think they've like a bottom 3 seed or something in the East right now, bottom 2 seed, which not the worst to get a good draft pick potentially. At the same time, Charlotte will extend its playoff drought, which started during the 16-17 season. Meanwhile, all 5 years of Ball's career will result in lottery finishes during that span. Ball led the Hornets to 2 play-in tournament games during his first 2 seasons, the farthest the franchise has gone in the past 9 seasons. Looking ahead, Ball wants to start winning. Thus, is Ball willing to endure more losing and lessen his chances of individual accolades as the Hornets continue rebuilding under the new regime of executive Jeff Peterson and coach Charles Lee? I think that the Hornets have taken the right step with trying to shake up the front office, coaching staff, all that stuff. I think they're taking the right steps. I think they've drafted pretty well. I like some of their guys. Obviously, Brandon Miller, I really like him a lot. I like Lamelo, of course. I like Mark. I like some of their guys that they have in their system. But I do think, like I was saying a moment ago, these guys are going to need to take a leap, and some of that could just be coaching, maturity. Like there's a lot of different ways for young players to get better, and they will eventually take this leap. But I just wonder if Lamelo really wants to start winning and doesn't want to sacrifice his own accolades, in the short term or whatever the case is, like they were just kind of laying out in the article, who knows? It's all conjecture. But if he wants to theoretically start winning now, he could potentially ask out. That could be a thing too. If you ask me, like, because I know there are going to be Charlotte Lamelo fans saying, "Oh, he's not getting traded." If you ask me if I thought he would get traded, I'd say no. But me, just like the other executives around the NBA, are like, okay, well, damn, if Luke is getting traded, then who else could get traded, right? Who knows? Who knows ultimately, right? Regardless of how you feel about the Luka trade, whether it was on the up and up, whatever, doesn't matter. Because every time I say that, people are like, "Why are you so surprised?" It was the league put the call in, right? So okay, whatever you think about it. The league themselves, the guys around the league are looking at it like, well, maybe so-and-so could be on the market. And I'm sure there's a number of guys similar to LaMelo that opposing teams are keeping an eye on, right? And that's always been the case. Teams have always tried to position their books for free agents, this and that. But I think that they're looking at some of these guys. That's the only reason LaMelo would be a part of this, is because he's a franchise guard. These guys don't typically get traded. He's young, everything. So that's the only reason that he would be potentially on this. He's locked up for the long term. They have no reason to trade him unless they just want to get off him or if he asks out. But that's because teams are keeping an eye on him, right? So if that wasn't clear, I don't think he would get traded. But anyway, Ball of the Hornets at 2 playing. I already answered that. Looking ahead, Ball wants to start winning. Will the Hornets equally want to pay Ball, who is in the first year of a 5-year, $204 million contract, while the team has yet to win with him at the face of the franchise and is in the early stages of a rebuild? Yeah, unfortunately, they've just taken so long to get going that he's already starting off the extension. Like they've just taken so long to get this thing going. So it is what it is at that point. You just kind of got to bite the bullet. I mean, I don't think you can he's the only guy in their books taking that. Like you have to use the money regardless. You have to use the money. So I think there's worse ways they could probably spend it. It does suck though when he's playing a third of the season or whatever it is though. Well, the Hornets equally want to pay him. If Charlotte puts Ball on the trade market, the Hornets could kickstart a complete teardown rebuild by trading him and clearing his maximum salary off the books long term, while adding cheaper young talent and several future first-round picks. So there's the nuclear option. Largely up to this point, I've advocated for Charlotte not trading him, but there's that alternative too. They could, in theory, trade him off, get back assets for him. Especially I've brought it up a few times because he's under contract. He doesn't have the leverage of saying, "Oh, I won't play here," or things like that. Like he has to go wherever he's traded. And you can demand maximum assets for him because he has no leverage, right? You've got him on the books for years. Like he's got no leverage. So you can demand maximum assets. You can get the entire thing. You can get 3-4 first-round picks, whatever you think he's worth, right? You can get that from a team and then reset all this and then build around Brandon Miller, maybe build around Mark, which I think things are a little bit interesting with Mark long-term also. We're going to see about him in a second, what they could potentially be trying to do with him too and what their thoughts are with him. But you could kickstart another rebuild, mid-rebuild, if you think that things with Ball, if you think he's not on the same timeline as your rebuild, you could do that. That is an option. That is the nuclear option because it's hard to get a LaMelo Ball in your program, but that is something that is available to the Hornets to do. And maybe they get a couple years down the road and say, okay, this isn't going the way we want. And at that point, obviously, they're a couple years into this extension with LaMelo, so some of that flexibility diminishes, of course. But maybe they get a couple years down the road and say, okay, let's just sell LaMelo and then go from there. The future of rising center Mark Williams could play a role in answering the question of whether or not they'll put him on the market. Williams was traded to the Lakers for Dalton Connect, a 2030 swap, an unprotected 2031 pick, and Cam Reddish, but LA rescinded the deal. After the Lakers rescinded the trade, the Hornets released a statement. We're excited to welcome Mark back to our Hornets organization. And the other team aggressively pursued Mark, we made the difficult decision to move him. We have always held great respect for Mark's talent, work ethic, and character. We're thrilled to welcome him back, blah, blah, blah. Despite putting out the press release, the Hornets reportedly spoke to the league to dispute the Lakers' failed physical assessment of Mark Williams' trade. Mark Williams' agent, which, by the way, is the same agent as Dalton Connect, last time I checked. The overwhelming sentiment after conferring with multiple nationally recognized doctors is that Los Angeles should not have failed Mark Williams on his physical. Mark was ready to play for them and should have been given that opportunity. I'm not really going to relitigate this entire thing. I think Adam Silver said it best. That stuff's all subjective. That's why you get second opinions. You can say, oh, XYZ is going on, whatever. Whatever. What's done is done. But I just wanted to bring up the Dalton Connect piece of that with the agents, is because if they're the same agent group, then he doesn't really have a reason to, like, I guess he could play both sides. That's probably typical. Therefore, Williams will be another name to watch this summer on the trade market. Yeah, since they already traded him, I am curious about what they'll do with him because he is eligible for an extension as well. So, like, that's where this all gets kind of tricky because they'll have two guys on their books under the extension. And Mark you could probably talk him down because his health issues and stuff like that this far, but his production should speak for itself as well. So he may command a decent market in terms of like what they would have to give him. I don't know if that's like a 25 a year, 22, 20, something like that. I don't know what it is. Maybe they compare him across with other players in the league, but they could have another big-ish contract on their books for another number of years here. And the thing is that the salary cap should continue to keep rising, so that also lessens how much you're really paying these guys in the long term because they're taking up less of your overall cap, which is why I said Lamelo, if he's healthy at 45, 39, whatever those numbers are as they keep going up, it's really not that bad. It's not, because if he were to get a new contract, he was going to be starting at like 60 a handful of years from now. Like he's going to be starting at 60. So maybe more, maybe more. So while it took a haul on paper for the Lakers to pry Williams from the Hornets before the trade was rescinded, the door is publicly opened that Charlotte is willing to move him. Yeah, I don't think they're getting that same return on him also. Bridges will be a name to watch in the trade market this offseason. When Bridges originally signed his 3-year, $75 million contract, it was structured to descend and be used as a trade chip. League sources told HoopSite Bridges will be owed $25 million and $22 million next season. So really, this is just all on the Hornets. It starts with Lamelo Ball, but the Hornets' options and their flexibility over the next few years here, what they could potentially do. There is the nuclear option, like I said a moment ago, where they could trade some of these guys off. You do wonder with Mark Williams if he would just get traded again because he was already traded, and maybe they'll try to find another team to take him on. I do think that the return would go down. I do think that also, again, the health concerns, all that stuff. And just the negative publicity of him having a failed physical probably also suppresses how much he's getting on that next contract too. So maybe they just retain him at a cheaper value, like I said, 20 something, which again is going to be a bargain if you got him on that number for another 5 years, right? Bridges, I don't really know what's going on with him, what to really expect there. Would he sign another few year extension? I'm not really sure. I don't know that they would want to do that either, for the record. But Lamelo Ball is the main piece of this because that's the undertone here, is that Lamelo may want to start winning. And if that's the case, they would have no choice but to ship him out. But they also may want to move on from him ultimately if they get a couple years into this and say, well, this is just not going the way we want. We want to restart this around Brandon or whatever the case is. And all that. So I do think this summer is interesting for them, getting that high draft pick. Who knows? Maybe they walk away with Cooper Flag or something. Who knows? Like that, I think that could greatly expedite the timeline for them and make them pretty interesting for the short and long term here. So let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. Make sure you subscribe. We'll see you next time.